Just recording.
Oh, good. So, how you doing?
It's Monday as opposed to a Sunday. So that's a little bit different because I work today.
And I didn't.
You asked me how I was doing. And I'm just telling you how I was doing. How are you?
Thanks. It's Monday that we're recording this. It's a little different because I work today.
I see.
Sound a little redundant.
Mondays are always interesting.
I don't know that I feel more tired than when we do this on a Sunday, though.
I don't know. Jury's still out on that one for me.
Tired every day lately.
Mondays have a lot more brain power involved than almost every other day. Because it's a lot of trying to catch up and remember what you forgot over the weekend.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily think that that's a good thing, but you're also supposed to take a break and unplug. And I don't know how you do one and not the other.
On the weekend, you mean? You're
Correct.
supposed to unplug?
Yep.
Hopefully.
Guess he's just going to bed. Speaking of Monday evening.
Tip tapping his Leo, just walking into his crate. He only goes in his crate when he wants to go to sleep, so that was pretty funny. Put me to bed. He's had the longest day out of everyone.
It's a lot going on in his life.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of stuff going on outside, a lot of stuff going on upstairs. A lot of run-ins with Tiger.
Yeah. If we leave our blinds in the front of the house open, he needs to bark at everything. I notice if we leave them closed, he does not.
He also had a lot of fun with everybody this weekend. So we got a lot of new smells and fun and excitement in.
Friends came over. I wanted to talk about a topic today that hadn't occurred to me until I read a book that is also new to me. Apparently you've read the Screw Tape Letters, right?
Yeah, it's been some time, but definitely a lot of it has stuck with me.
But that's not what this is about. I'm just kidding. Apparently the book that I'm reading is written in the tone of the Screw Tape Letters, but it's specifically for women. But I think it can be applied to women. The topic that I wanted to talk about could be applied to women and men. The book that I wanted to read a passage from to talk about is called Sincerely Stoneheart, and it's written by Emily Wilson Hussam, Hussem. When I read it, it is from the perspective of a demon instructing like a lesser demon for how to...
I mean, that's what the Screw Tape Letters is. It's essentially a demon telling a lesser demon how human beings work and where their flaws reside and how to get the better of them and how to trick them and ensure that they're being taken full advantage of.
Yes, that's a good word. Take advantage of them is a good way. Just to keep them in that like down despair feeling.
Right.
Is a good way to... that's what I was looking for. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're so welcome.
So this is from chapter 4, and it's called Insidious Roots. If you happen to have the book or take a look at it, it's page 17. Now we move on to the next lesson, productivity. It may sound a bit silly, but have patience. You'll be astonished by how it works within our wider plan to move them all to a life of despair. Many of our subjects have been sculpted and shaped toward a deep productivity for believing that their ability to do is essentially who they are. Their identity lies in the doing. The more they do, the better they are. The more valuable they are. The more worthy they are. Oh, the emptiness. This premium on doing has been instilled within them from a young age. When a child learns that their grades on a report card are all that matters, when they're taught vigorously and unrelentingly that their intelligence, abilities, and strengths are most evident in a collection of letters on a paper, that's when they begin to believe what they can do is all that they are. Notice how this ties serendipitously into our desire to confuse our subject about who she is. Or as I'm reading this, I also think who he is. I've been working on this for many years. You are your grades. So many of them are shown and told, either consciously or subconsciously. They're given a letter for everything. It's like the saying, you are what you eat. But we tell them you are what you do. The systems try to balance it out with pitiful awards here and there for good attitudes or kindness. But when it comes down to it, they're lying. Everything has become only about the letters and scores, and therefore productivity. The work to undo this is in the psyche. The work to undo this in the psyche is near impossible. And in fact, we rejoice. Imagine having this wired into your entire being throughout your most impressionable years. When any of your subjects fail to excel in doing as school children, they're made to feel worthless. As we strive to counteract their understanding of their true identity, this works well in our favor. It all fits together like a puzzle, as you've surely seen true in so much of our work. Brilliant, no? All credit to the chief being Satan. Now, if you look at the work we've done to correlate productivity with value and worth, you'll be able to see how much that takes root in many areas of our subject's life. When we talk about taking root, understand that I'm not talking about something like the roots of a small plant, but more like those of a tall tree. There was once a tree she loved in her front yard whose roots spread under her house and got into the pipes. The havoc those roots caused was quite costly, and those are the kind of roots I'm speaking of. The deep, wide roots, strong enough to break apart a cement sidewalk. That's the type of root business we're in. Prayer is one place of highest importance, where this correlation of productivity and value has seeped in. Recall that I told you to keep her from prayer at all costs. We don't want her walking in relationship with our enemy. Surely you're now seeing how these pieces fit together. Prayer doesn't feel productive. She isn't accomplishing anything while praying. She has nothing to show for it. She didn't make anything. She didn't achieve anything. There's nothing externally different after spending time in prayer, save a more peaceful countenance, perhaps. There are so many things on the to-do list that she could check off and have something to show for it. Prayer is not one of them. This is good. This incessant harping on productivity is a pillar of the world that we've fortified with careful movements. They think it's making them better. It's actually ruining them. Does that speak to you at all with what you have gone through in your early life until today? Because from my own experience, I feel like it could speak to a lot of people who have just been doing and not necessarily realizing that they're in that mindset from an early age in school, at least in the US, from what I went through in my early years in school. Not necessarily realizing that our identity actually comes from God versus I got straight A's, etc. I was the best in sports, all of the things that can come with school.
I do think that there's a lot of distractions that hamper everyday life, and prayer often does get put on the back burner. I certainly don't focus on it as much as when I go from meeting to meeting to meeting during the day. I don't really think about it in all of the interactions that I have with people during the day either. Sometimes I do, but
You don't think about what?
I don't really think about um, God maybe as much in some of the things that I'm trying to complete. I think it's more being consumed by the thing that I have to complete instead, or the discussion that I have to have, rather than focusing on. I don't pause in between meetings and pray or anything like that. Well, what does it mean to you?
The fact that all through school, I personally did not do well.
Right.
So it speaks to me for that reason. I've put my worth in life still on the fact that I was not a good student and that I did not do well.
Mm-hmm.
And I struggled in relation to at least the kids around me that I could see. Maybe there were kids that were struggling that I didn't even realize. But I still put that into, like, if I'm trying to read on my own, I go back to little Jessica struggling to read as a kid. And then I relate any kind of like slowness in my learning on a new job or a new topic or anything like that back to how I was in school. And to think of that in the perspective, like the chapter from the book, that may have been instilled in me to form roots as a child that would affect me negatively as an adult to this day is an interesting way to put that to me. Like, it gives me a little bit of my power back to go, oh, I can be exactly who God wants me to be. And then ask the question of, who is that from God's perspective versus what the world has told me I am, which is a slow reader, bad at math, probably around a C or below student, all of the above. Not good at sports, clumsy. I could go on and on and on.
So that's interesting because I think I have somewhat of the opposite. I did do really well in school, in elementary school, middle school, and high school. I was on the swim team. I did track. And then when I went to college, I got lost in I don't really know what to do with my life. I don't really know what to do. And when I say it's kind of like the opposite problem, I think I excelled in certain areas and then have always like held myself to that standard.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been a constant open wound because I've not been able to figure out exactly where those skills fit and in what way.
To me, it seems like everybody could relate to that sort of concept differently. Like when you tell me that, I see it as soon as you realize that that's what you dealt with in like early schooling versus, to me, you could also take it as from that productivity standpoint of you were always distracted by the next thing, the next thing, the next thing.
Mm-hmm.
And the topic also spoke to me because you and I have had many conversations about how we never really learned how to fully relax.
Right.
And I think you can tell me how you feel, but for me personally, I always felt inadequate in various ways. And if I fully relaxed and did nothing in front of other people, it felt like I wasn't trying to better myself or trying to get ahead or working on myself in the ways that I should be because I felt inadequate.
Yeah, and I can relate to that. I feel very much the same. I also come from a household where we would go nonstop too, every day of the week.
Me too.
But I think more to the point, I don't know that I've ever successfully found out how to unwind. And outside of going to, say, like the beach or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like this weekend, I had stuff going on basically all day Friday from like 5:30 in the morning on till 2 o'clock in the morning. And then
Sounds like you partied hard.
not really. And then from like 8 o'clock or 8:30 the next day up until like 1 o'clock in the morning. And it was entertaining people, but entertaining people in maybe a different way than one might think, right? So Friday night, I had a friend from work over, and we had some pretty deep discussions about stuff that's not only going on at work, but you know, other life things. And then on Saturday, I hosted a book club that I'm doing every other month. My house is just happens to be the one that's kind of in the middle for everybody, and it makes sense for everybody to kind of congregate and meet here. And I love that, but I know that it's probably not going to get over till late. So Friday and Saturday got pretty eaten up, and then I get to Sunday, and I've always laughed at the fact that Sunday is considered, we're supposed to be considered a day of rest. And I think this is funny because I think it was Ben Shapiro that was talking about the Sabbath recently on one of his podcasts, and that you're not even really supposed to burn gasoline on the Sabbath.
Hmm.
And I'm taking that to mean you shouldn't even drive a car. Like it should be that
Wow.
much rest. And I think that, kind of forces you to be around your family. The whole reason I'm telling this is it's like on Sunday, I get caught between guilting myself for not doing.
Yep.
It's like Friday and Saturday, I did things involving other people. And then Sunday, when I can actually sit down and relax, I don't have the ability to do so because I'm trying to figure out what I'm not doing in order to better myself.
Mm-hmm.
My personal life, my career, I would love nothing better than to figure out some way to create a different stream of income, or sit down and draw, or do some other kind of live streaming, or learn how to do some kind of new skill involving, I don't know, like video or audio production. And it's like the second that I sit down and I have 30 seconds of quiet, I begin to feel guilty. And it's gotten so bad that it's something I'm discussing with a counselor. As a matter of fact, I was even in confession recently and just said, I can't turn off,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know what to do. It's like there's no switch. And both the counselor and the priest said the same thing about, you just need to relax. And
So irritating.
it's
to
literally
hear.
the worst advice because I have no idea what that means.
It's like when somebody's sad, anxious, depressed, any of those things, going through grief, and people just say, just relax.
But it goes back to what you were saying about, it's like a standard that has been set that I hold myself up against. And I don't know. I don't know what to do with it. I don't know what to do about it. I don't know how to stop it. I don't know how to turn it off. But it is definitely a constant.
I wonder if it's like other things you may work on in therapy where noticing it is the first step to figure out what to do. But
Maybe.
I thought it was important to talk about because it's something that you and I have both been frustrated with.
I almost feel like in my head sometimes, in order to do something new or learn something new, I have to figure out how to make room for it in my head. And in order to make room for things in my head, it's like I have to find that off switch for a little while, even if it's like just a day. Because I am never more ready and raring to go than when I come back from like a vacation. Like if I have a very restful vacation, like the last 2 to 3 days of that vacation, I'll be thinking about what I can do to excel when I get back to work,
Mm-hmm.
or to excel my own personal or professional growth. And it's almost like I had to find a way in order to relax and find the off switch to recharge to make that happen. And I feel like I can't find that on a normal weekend. So it's like I go through so much of a period of, I don't know, it's hard to explain. It's hard to explain. And can you argue that, like, if you're not at peace, if your mind's not at peace, like that is the devil? I don't know. Maybe, but then I also go, is it being impatient? I just have such a hard time with like all of the thoughts in my head and about feeling guilty whenever I take a break.
I struggle with the same thing.
I have to like also think about the fact that when I see somebody else doing a job I want to do, I try to be very careful because I don't want to be envious of what somebody else is doing.
Mm-hmm. I think that's something to take captive because it does feel like that can be from the devil.
Yeah.
Being envious of other people versus being grateful for what we have and not being complacent, but not to the point where that's all you're doing, you know?
I think another thing recently is like, I was just talking to a friend of mine about woodworking and the amount of items that he's created with his hands. A kitchen, he's created all kinds of shelving in his garage, and he has multiple kids. We have no kids, and I would love to understand how to do that, but it's always like this internal fight of like, I just don't know how to start. I don't know how to begin. And I think sometimes I go back to like when I was growing up and I'd go to learn something new, or I'd go to help my dad out in the yard or do something, and I wouldn't do it right. And then it would immediately be taken out of my hands. And it would be like my dad would just say, I'll just do it. And then shrug and walk off. And so I think that that's also part of, I also hate making mistakes.
It's okay to make mistakes.
But I don't know how to get through that. I don't know what it is because, like, for example, with like woodworking, I'm not going to go out and buy a power saw and just start sawing wood. Like, that doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
I feel like I need a thing to do. It's like when I talk to people about programming, and I'm like, that's really interesting to me, but it's not enough for me to just go start typing on a keyboard. Like, what? I need a purpose. I need, like, why? If I can understand what a problem is I'm trying to solve, then I can lay a foundation and kind of like get my fingers around it. But if it's just like, go do this thing, go learn how to do this thing without any kind of context or finish line, so to speak, I think it kind of reminds me of when people do instruments and they just go up and down the scales. And I'm like, you can go fast, you can go slow. Maybe that's a bad one. Maybe that's a bad example.
It's not a bad example because there are geniuses that can pick up instruments and just learn how to play. And that's how people that already know these skills that you and I want to learn seem to us. But they had to start somewhere and somebody taught them or they asked somebody to learn from them. Maybe that's one of the things we need to do, start a support group for people who want to learn new skills.
I just need a support group, or
somebody hold me up.
Some drugs of some kind that I can shut off with.
I'm the wrong person to say that to. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
I think realizing that stuff about your childhood and the way things were seems important to then, like, you can sit with it and be upset, but then you also need to figure out what you want your life to look like now that you're an adult. I think where we're getting stuck is, okay, made that choice, but from the Catholic perspective, I'm struggling as well because I've also said to you, well, maybe we need to go spend some time in adoration and quiet. And maybe we wouldn't hear a big booming voice from God, but maybe that would give us the space to rest in God and then come back out of that and make the next step to what we want to do. But that almost doesn't feel like the right thing to me because there's an information piece missing to me. But then I go back to the subject of productivity. And is that because I'm used to, if I'm going to find the answers to stuff, am I supposed to be reading? Am I supposed to be taking in information like in the form of computer book, listening to some kind of audio?
Even that, though, is hard sometimes. Like, I find myself reading something or beginning to read something, and then my mind drifts to other things. There's this lady that I work with, and she's involved very much in outreach for executives. And a lot of that involves training. And by training, I mean anytime that there's some kind of new initiative within the organization or new software, she and a group of other people have been responsible for ensuring that executive leadership are prepared and that their constituents, if you will, understand and will utilize whatever the new thing is. And the training aspect is something that's interesting to me. I really like, I've always liked that. I've always liked trying to help people to better understand a thing, because to me, it's almost like a puzzle. It's like you're trying to explain a concept to somebody. You have to kind of roll it over multiple ways sometimes with different people and explain different ways. But it seems like there's always some kind of eureka moment. And she knows that I'm not super happy. And I have just continued to say to her, use me. Like, if you have things that are along these same lines, throw them at me. I'm busy, but it's interesting to me.
Yeah.
And she threw this puzzle at me earlier about trying to figure out these different people and what kinds of software they were using and how often they were using it. And I did it in 15 minutes. Like, it was something that I figured out in 15 minutes, and I was able to like give a report back that she was able to use in a meeting. She didn't think she was going to have it till later in the week. And I just gravitate towards that stuff, like the problem solving piece.
Satisfying.
But it was also clear. It was a clear ask. There was like a clear, and I think so many days and so many different tasks in both real life and professional life. We operate in this weird, vague,
murky
world. And at least with Catholicism, we have faith as a thing we can fall on. And I keep thinking about how we went over sanctifying grace and the other different types of graces the last time that we chatted. But I wish sometimes that there was more clarity around what we're supposed to do. And I don't think God wants us to be unhappy. And I don't think the world is perfect. We're fallible human beings. But I also think that there are people that have a good relationship with God, people that don't have a good relationship with God, that find that niche and they fit into it and they excel at it and they're off with it. And I want that so bad.
Seems like in conversations, you and I each had glimpses of that, but not the full, this is what I'm meant for feeling.
And I think about that kind of thing, and then I like guilt myself into feeling selfish. Because, like, for example, this week I had one coworker that had to fly to India because somebody in his family passed away. And then another coworker around the same time who was a little boy that fell sick, and that family spent the majority of the week in the hospital. And then I think about how quick life can just change. And all of a sudden, the thing that I'm concerned with, I feel like guilty and selfish about. And I just never, it feels like any time that I'm wanting, it's like something comes up and smacks me in the face. And it's like, there's bigger things going on. And I don't know. Is that normal? Is that not normal? I don't know what to do with that.
I also feel like our separate lives and our relationship together will be going along for what feels like a day or two, and things are okay. And then something super stressful happens. And I keep wondering if that sort of thing is meant to throw us off from what we're really meant to be doing. If I need to get better at letting things roll off of me instead of being consumed at times.
I would think that there's got to be some kind of balance between the search for meaning and still finding enough in your day to day interactions and your professional life to be satisfied. Even if it's not fully satisfied, that feeling of walking away from your job, for example, and you go, man, today was really fruitful. I accomplished everything that I needed to, even though it was super busy. Like that feeling of doing something, of creating something, of the thing that you did actually having an impact versus constantly bouncing around, feeling like you're not making any sense to anybody, feeling like you are somewhat aimless and ineffective, regardless of how hard you try.
On a different planet from other people sometimes.
Maybe it's a thing where it's something that everybody goes through. I'm just a loudmouth about it, where my brain just seems to work harder at making me feel the way that I do. Counselor said I needed to figure out how to better ground myself.
Give you ideas for grounding?
Yeah, he said to lean back in my chair and take a deep breath and to think about where my feet were in the room that I'm in and to look at different things in the room. And 50% of me gets it and 50% of me wants to jump out a window when I hear that.
I get that.
But apparently you can do that from a Catholic perspective and think about the fact that your surroundings are all part of senses that God has given you.
Mm-hmm.
Smell, sights, taste, touch, sound. And you can offer gratitude because God created it all.
One of my grounding exercises was to pick 5 of each of the senses that I could pick out when I'm starting to panic. That was before I started working on the EMDR type stuff. I needed to have tools for me to go back to when I started getting really stressed about stuff I was working through. And one of them was, maybe it was 3, not 5. I think I said 5. But pick out 3 things you can see, 3 things you can hear, 3 things you can taste. Taste is weird if you're not eating anything. But basically all of the senses. That's interesting in relation to God. But that doesn't seem to speak to you.
It's
When
not
you
that it
said
doesn't
that, you were
speak
like,
to me.
apparently.
It's just, I think some people have the ability to just give themselves to a higher power. They have the ability to like give themselves up to that deep breath. They have the ability to just go, I'm not going to let what's going on bother me. I'm going to take this deep breath and pretend for a moment that everything is okay. And I cannot do that. That is like the furthest thing from real life for me. I just have a really, really, really hard time with that. It's probably why I belong in a padded cell.
I was thinking more, do we need to take more vacations? Not the padded cell.
Maybe a vacation to a padded cell.
Mm-mm.
What other thoughts did you have regarding that chapter that you read?
My bookmark sitting in my book was a gift from a friend, but it says, be still and know that I am God. I think it relates to what we're talking about.
Yeah, like exactly so.
Didn't really have a whole lot else to say. I just thought it was an interesting topic in relation to doing productivity versus rest. And I don't have fully fledged ideas for how to get rest. I guess my only other idea is to keep praying about it and to remember from what I just read for myself that prayer is just as important as cleaning the house, doing my job, connecting with other people, all the things.
I do wonder when keep holy the Sabbath came about and what was originally meant by that.
Is it originally from when God created the world and then he rested on Sunday?
Sure, but what?
Sorry, the 7th day.
What is that? What does that mean?
What do you mean? You're looking.
I think it goes hand in hand with what we're talking about, right? What does it mean to keep holy the Sabbath? What does it mean?
Oh, to not do like extra work.
Maybe I
Those
should say it
things?
this way. I thought Sunday was supposed to be a day of rest.
Yes. What specifically does that mean?
Mm-hmm.
Got it. Because I feel that's always been wishy-washy.
Working, so
It's done with us.
my guess is that. So this is kind of interesting, but I found an article from Catholic Answers about resting on Sundays means something. And similar to what I mentioned before, the lady that wrote this article seems to begin with, on a recent trip to Israel, I had the opportunity to celebrate Shabbat dinner with some fellow Catholics in the home of an Orthodox Jewish family. A Jewish family that does not socialize with Christians. For the other Catholics on this trip, this was their first experience of a Sabbath dinner where exotic rituals are attached to the blessing and consumption of the traditional wine, the challah bread, and the meal. She goes on to write that in Jerusalem, once the Sabbath begins, things shut down. I wasn't even able to turn the heater off in my hotel room. It's not permitted. The restaurants and gift shops are closed, and there are barely any cars on the streets because driving is prohibited on the Sabbath.
Wow.
There's even such a thing as a Sabbath elevator, which lets its religious riders avoid pressing any elevator buttons. This seemingly strange prohibition comes from Exodus 35, verse 3. Thou shalt not kindle a fire in any of your dwellings on the Sabbath day. Strictly observant Jews consider modern-day electricity kindling a fire, which means they forbid operating any electronic device, although they will allow for getting on an elevator that happens to be stopping at every floor, including their own. Kindling a fire is only one of 39 categories of activities that Orthodox Jews must avoid. Others include writing, carrying, selling, buying, washing, sewing, cooking, building, and using the telephone. In short, God rested on the seventh day, which is to say, he ceased from creating anything new. And Orthodox Jews seek through their laws to imitate God in this all-encompassing divine rest.
We could take a note from that. They can get dressed though, right?
I hope so.
Do that the night before, ready for the next day.
After creating, God rests as an example for us to rest as well. This rest is a reminder that we were created not primarily to work. Rather, our ability to work is an expression of our dignity. Only rational creatures can work and know the meaning of work. Animals, irrational creatures, do not. But then, as the story goes, work became not primarily an expression of man's dignity and creativity, but first toilsome and then an idol, something of an addiction, an obsession, and therefore a condition for not freedom, but slavery. Work, which was kind of participation in the worship of God, became a kind of God, because God was forgotten. Man himself was also forgotten. The meaning of both work and man was lost. And this is where we find ourselves today. There's a reason John Paul II called for a new evangelization. There is a reason that rediscovering Sunday is an essential part of getting to know God and ourselves once again. If enough Christians reclaim the Lord's Day, this will be enough to transform culture for the better, which the American church lately just cannot seem to do.
So is that one answer for us? We need to reclaim Sunday?
Sure, but again, like what does that mean? Because she goes on to talk about the fact that the decision to rest is also a protection against an endless cycle of pressure, school, work, motion, and inevitable burnout. We might not need liberation from the physical bondage of the Egyptians or their false gods, as the Israelites did, but we have our own idols that keep us in spiritual bondage. There are psychologists who will tell you the heart of any form of addiction, and who is without some form of addiction, is an intimacy disorder. How many addictions would be healed if we could return to intimacy with the Lord and thereby with each other? There are many ways to make Sunday different. I know families who do a Sunday brunch after Mass, pray Vespers, go on hikes, and play music together. I've always appreciated the tradition of family members sharing the ways in which God particularly blessed from the previous week. You can also pray this litany or this biblical examen based on leisure as a help in growing in the capacity to be at rest, and she's got links to both of those. But I guess Pope John Paul said sharing in the Eucharist is the heart of Sunday. the duty to keep Sunday holy cannot be reduced to this.
Like for us, we need to go to Mass, receive the Eucharist, and go for a hike.
I don't think it's necessarily to go on a hike, but I think for like a day of rest, or I think from that perspective, like the idea would be like if a family went on a hike, the family's spending times with themselves, likely away from electronics and things that we all like to play around on
Yep.
day to day.
It can become a black hole of
And that's what she means
interest.
by idolatry. You know, I mean, I even said the other day when I was talking to everybody about our book this weekend, I just feel like when I see emails coming in from people on Saturday and Sunday, on one hand, I go, it's not healthy because it feels like at some point you do have to turn off from work. But on the other hand, I also think that there are certain people that make the world go round. And if they don't make the world go round, then everybody suffers as a result. And I think that that's unfortunate.
Would everybody really suffer though? Do you mean like people at the power plant, the sewer place, those kinds of people?
Maybe.
Essential things that we think we need?
Maybe.
I think us talking about this at least gives us a chance to figure out what's essential and what we're doing if we're trying to rest. Is this going to serve me if I get into X, Y, or Z?
Agreed.
I appreciate hearing your perspective on it.
I appreciate the subject that you brought up. I think it's really interesting.
You don't appreciate my perspective?
I appreciate your perspective. I thought it went without saying, but
Oh, nice. Appreciate that. So much appreciation.
yes, so much.
Not productivity, appreciation.
Mm-hmm. Anything else you want to share?
People listening, please pray for us.